gotta go sleep. Like, ah! Gotta go. Lazy, lazy, lazy. Ah! Ah!
we'll be living with. Well, we'll be talking to some of the people who've been thinking about the home of the future. Christine McNulty.
I started the Home of the Future project to find out what people will want from their homes. They'll want all the benefits of modern technology, but without all this utterly complex gadgetry that we have today. They'll want homes that work for them. By 2020, all of this will be possible. You'll have things under control without all these knobs and buttons. And what's more, the technology itself will be embedded in the very fabric of the house and its furnishings. So the idea is, once all the clutter of technology is gone, you'll be able to furnish your rooms in any style you like. You won't actually be able to see the technology. It will be there, doing its job without getting in your way.
That means the lights automatically switch off and on as you walk between rooms. And the home learns how bright you like them. A simple command gives you music, perhaps piped in from a sound library. Bar, please. And no more PowerPoints. Plug in paths, picking up power from anywhere on the wall. And even Windows will take an active part in the home, according to another researcher, David Buck.
This is the very last technology, whereby combining fully transparent curtains with ordinary conventional glass, we're able to change the performance of the glass. We can diffuse the glass for privacy, and with other curtains, we can control the glare and solar radiation. In other words, we can vary the performance of a computer. And this microscope display TV again involves a material sandwiched between two thin pieces of glass. Screens more than a metre wide are being developed. These systems depend on light passing through the glass. But this glass has a coating which can act as a light source in itself, becoming a prototype display screen. This imaging technology is embodied in very thin coatings, which will be developed to be transparent. And when combined with ordinary glass, it means that your glass tabletop could become a reading screen. And indeed, your window will become something very remarkable.
So a simple command can turn a window into a wall, and you can decorate it how you want. Or it could be a television, or a computer screen. Well, that may be a little futuristic or too expensive for most people. But there's one area where homes are going to have to change.
There will have been enormous pressure on us to cut down on burning the fossil fuels to protect the environment. This means that energy management in our homes will become of critical importance.
There are already materials that can help. This honeycomb material is being used on the outside of a building in Strathclyde to heat it by trapping the energy in diffuse daylight as it hits the walls. And aerogel, this is aerogel here, is a form of glass with a similar structure at a microscopic level. It can do the same job, but it will be thinner and transparent. And if these two things become widely used by 2020, the countries could one day reduce heating bills almost to zero and help to cut down our use of fossil fuels.
The other key is for the home to use more energy more intelligently. The heating system can learn your daily routine, and only heat the rooms that you'll be using. The living room will be at just the right temperature as you come downstairs.
The people who are already planning a home that we're living in 30 years assure us that we can take as much or as little of this technology as we like. The crucial point is that there'll be no single home in the future, there'll be millions of different ones. We choose the type of home we want to live in, the technology takes a back seat. BBC One, please.
computer language, hardware is the machine, software us, and the programs we feed into our machines. But it's a fact of life that computers can't always supply the solutions to our most personal problems.
I think it's like a very serious condition. I was considered when I was taken to hospital the worst outfit that we need there.
So you proved to give me a divorce straightforwardly. So I had to go against him, and one could only do it by pointing a finger and accusing anger and bringing out all sordid things, and it's awful.
I usually learn about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and when I do leave the hotel, I go straight to the continent cinema, we can do it. And that's it in there, because it's dark and there's no daylight. I'll just be sitting there in a sort of thing until 12 o'clock at night when I go for my prescription.
There is no exact word that fits my activities as an artist. These activities include a lot of recent technological processes, therefore I'm deeply involved in technology. But my aim is to use it for other ends, for human and artistic ends, rather than as a means of supplying a consumer market. A lot of people talk about the problem of the artist in relationship to technology and science. For me, there's no problem. I accept technology and science, but then I want to go beyond that. You know, for me, 1968 is a great year, and I love it. I see no future going back. And this brings me to the problem of software and hardware. The hardware situation has been with us a long time already. The Industrial Revolution started this, the physical extension of our capabilities of dominating the world, with results like steam engines and railways, bridges, ships, and then later cars, and now aeroplanes, rockets, computers. You know, the world is now crammed with hardware that's impinging on our lives. Recent developments in aircraft, air-cushioned vehicles, and all forms of transport interest me because of their enormous potential in reducing the size of the world. Solutions to non-aesthetic problems have given us some of the most beautiful structures in the world. Tunnels, balloons, airships, aeroplanes, rockets, pneumatic buildings, and so on. But since these are man-made extensions of our physical selves, the buildings and clothes extend our skin, cars extend our legs, I'm for a better balance of the physical and mental implications of these extensions. We accept a lot of automation in our own bodies, heart beating, lungs breathing, digestion, and so on, without associating this with loss of identity, because this automation leaves us free to do things that are more important to us. And I think the same will be true of the automation of work,
which causes pneumatic automation matters to rise beneath the vertical sheet and to secure the crank to the plate by means of bolts and threaded bolts in the engine itself.
Automation will solve many physical problems, leaving us to human ones. I involve myself with technology, but often using it for reasons that are opposed to its own aims. This was really quite a good thing when I looked back and I looked at things months after than anything else. But of course, really what this was about in the first place was this sort of software hardware thing, because there's this guy stuck inside his spacesuit, inside his capsule, and all this sort of checking out, checking out what's happening to that poor animal in there. Because the whole idea really is I want the way that things attached to actually become part of the whole thing, you know, because the whole idea behind this was really all these objects. Oh, that's great, you know. I mean, okay, so you spend a lot of time on that beautiful and we lost it, you know. But that's how it shows. Noses, eyes, ears. These are the instruments we use to relate to the everyday world. Our five senses need to be fed in all sorts of ways, and there is a vast amount of hardware available to us for this purpose. It is in the use we make of that hardware in everyday life that we come closest to it. The total thing. There's a reassuring illusion of freedom in choosing our material needs, which are packaged and sold by experts. Experts are not only providing for our wants, but also in creating new ones as well.
Smooth, clean perfection. The cleanest consent. By Eleanor Rubinstein, if she's an angel, give her heaven's hell of optimism for Christmas.
And if something does go wrong with our bodies, medical science is ready with hundreds of new drugs. Many diseases and physical impairments are under control for the first time. Yeah. Now we can actually replace parts of the body like repairing a motor car. But we're still left with mental problems. A doctor at the Olympic Centre.
It's very strange to justify the foreigners for scripture. He doesn't know where this society is going to be. He doesn't know where it's going to be, how it's going to be. So this requires a very great attention to this first way of living, and then social worker. And I assure you, the medical social worker is just as busy as a doctor starts, and it's not easy to find service. Just imagine, you're letting me look for a medical. Now, you wouldn't you might feel a shock, but you couldn't feel the ground with your foot at your toe. Now, we do that as all ours. We all have some areas. You visually, you do by the air. You can smell things, but the most important sense is the sense of touch.
I really think that's really the most important sense.
It's all of us, but particularly so for children who never had access to read it.
Yes.
That is why we consider it so important to allow, to say, all children to use their feet. Their transforming of finding out one thing, the texture of things, the temperature of things, and can tell which is how soft, which is warm, which is curved.
And it's not just limbs. Spare part surgery is just beginning, and its possibilities are probably unlimited. But this is all very visible and physical. Really more revolutionary are the invisible extensions of our senses. Think of the amount of power that is available to us that we take for granted. We reach our finger 100 times a day and use more horsepower than a small factory used 100 years ago. And we can extend our vision of hearing in much the same way, much more than we used to. I think that the era of print is now rapidly becoming less important, and we're entering the era of electronic communications, total global electronic communications. I mean, for instance, this room is full of messages, thousands and thousands of messages are here, totally invisible. And we need something other than our senses to pick them up. One needs to tune into an electronic device, television, radio, whatever it is, a transistor. We switch on, we hear a message from France or Czechoslovakia, that's some jazz. We got things from anywhere in the world. And not only sound, but also images as well. I think that this is an extension for me, not only of our ears, but an extension of our eyes now right throughout space. And well, this is a great example of the sort of thing I'm talking about. I mean, now 4,000 miles away in Mexico, this very second, this is happening and we're seeing it bounce off a satellite in space and down to us. And you know, this is a very description. One is into other people's ecology. Or other sorts of information like that. This is also, say, one can now see by satellite and television on the other side of the moon, out into outer space, or on the other hand, down into matter, down to the atom.
Well, the theoretical microscope magnifies a very sharp point of metal to over 2 million times. And basically, we bombard the metal with gas particles which are repelled to form an image of the actual atomic structure of the metal on the screen.
Each of those dots is an individual atom. We will probably never see anything smaller because electrons and neutrons can only be measured in time. And suddenly we're faced with a similarity between these and the giant stars and satellites millions of light years away. And as we move out into outer space, we can look back at our own world from an entirely new viewpoint. The idea of stuff is limited if our senses are unaided. Now we're beginning to make out the underlying, ever-changing pattern of relationships. Well, almost any physical problem can now be solved. And this is probably for the first time in the history of man. You can live on pills, live at the bottom of the sea, go to the moon. You can talk to your friends and see you at the same time on a listen phone. Given some of money to remember these things, but these things, these physical things alone, don't solve the problems of life. Another example. A journalist who was a member of the local council when this estate was conceived and has been closely connected with it ever since is John Sluter.
Well, I think that the architects in this estate took every single opportunity. They had plenty of land to play with, they had wonderful background from farms and woodland commons, and they used their landscaping skill. They improvised new schemes of architecture that you can see around you here. And in creating the estate, they have catered for the old people, they have catered for small families, they have catered for large families, they have catered for people in many, many circumstances, all together. And at no point have they given the assistance of being able to come.
I hear it's been trouble in the sense of vandalism and, a feeling of boredom, particularly amongst teenagers. Do you think there's not a human problem involved here?
There is a very great human problem. The family set out to deal with old people, with parents, and with young children. The young children grow up. But boys and girls look around for something to do. Hooliganism has gone up here, the vehicles have been damaged. The unfortunate bus shelter at Lucy Gardens, which the Residents Association pressed their hearts and family erected. Innumerable times and now stands to evaluate memorial that the trends of thought nowadays.
I hear there's another congregation of brothers now in the state.
Yes, and there is. But where those drug addicts come from is problematic. Whether they come from on the estate or from districts around the estate, it can only have to guess. Now they come here and take advantage of it, keep their architectural construction on stilts. These black blocks offer plenty of shelter for them. They can walk around them. They use the welcome sometimes with convenient doors. Very instances where they have power for this. Only this week there were two 17-year-olds who were brought before gave us an excuse, but they were born.
It can no longer be said that drug addicts come from poor families or broken homes. As the material affluence of our society has increased, so has the incidence of addiction to drugs.
I born in school in City Stanford, skip off school downtown, and I was out with Johnson and Backstreet something. They had some material and I think I got myself together.
Have you got brothers and sisters?
Yeah, family.
Oh, I was in a big family.
Yes. But no cause I'm
I mean, we're a perfectly normal family living in a very ordinary sort of place.
Yes.
That's not anything down to be broke or something. Well, the way I see things is that we now have the possibilities of solving the hardware problems of the world, and we must solve them. We must clothe, house, and feed everybody before we go on to what I consider still to be the main problem, and those are the interior psychological problems, the software problems. And obviously I'm not the first person to have thought about these problems. They've been considered for centuries by theologians, anthropologists, psychologists, sociologists, educationists, etc. How far are you hoping to solve the human problems of the world as opposed to the technological ones? Dr. Thomas Weiss is an educationalist from the Rudolf Steiner schools.
We don't look at education to be mainly information and the development of skills, but rather the development of human potential. And that the child is not, as it were, less than grown up and has to be helped to become as much as other people are, to know as much and to be able to do as much. But rather that the child comes from a different world, or out of a different type of consciousness, which has its own qualities and is in some ways greater or even wiser than the ordinary consciousness, where there are resources of fantasy, of imagination, also possibly of morality, that the child gradually has to lose in order to become adult. And that therefore it's not only a question of how to impart knowledge and skills, but also how to preserve original qualities and possibilities in the course of education.
Dr. Mervyn Stockwood, the Bishop of Southwark.
Technology is concerned primarily with answering the question how, whereas theology with the question why. And most of us want to know why they what kinds of success in life, and eventually certain Christianity they want to help us to discover something themselves. Because it's only when we've got a sense of purpose, we get our priorities right, and get the drive for doing something that's worthwhile.
Professor Isaac, psychologist.
Will you give you three examples of the ways in which psychologists at the moment are trying to help and solve some of these human problems? The first example is one in which we make an application to individual problems of emotions and behavior, which in some way or other require to change. The technique is known as behavior therapy and is an excuse of what we have learned in the laboratory about the learning, acquisition, and extinction of emotions, behaviors, and so on. We may, for instance, be confronted with people who suffer from very strong anxieties and fears relating to certain individual problems or individual objects. In that case, it asks us some of distinguishing these emotions, which we usually do by accompanying teaching or training session in relaxation with the imagined or actual presence of these objects. And gradually, by process of conditioning, we eliminate the anxiety and go on. Similarly, you can get rid of headaches, which otherwise are extremely difficult to get rid of, such as, for instance, narrowing out of addiction. You simply simply couple the particular heroin in or injecting the heroin in the veins with something which is diversified in electric shocks, and in that way we can eliminate the previously invasive which are indeed to do anything with. For these kinds of things we can do with individuals, but far greater problems arise in connection with groups of people. Take as an example the kind of thing which takes on constantly dealing with the underdeveloped countries. Of course, you do other things for them, but when you get there, you find they don't really want what you have to give because they have all sorts of mores and habits which will counter to it. And there are simply ways of not use what you have to give them. For instance, in South Africa, the natives are very closely undernourished. There's an awful lot of fish, yet they don't eat fish. In other words, it's psychological. What can you do to make them eat fish? They're talking from really technical one, technological one, it's a psychological one.
One thing very critical about Christianity is you look back on its history as despite some of the great thousands and thousands of people have been looking to things for the benefit of mankind, the world, education, health, respect for women, social justice, even our own days, in this country, some of the most worthwhile sexual research was inspired by people with deep Christian conviction.
I have a very funny idea that the type of crime we do now, for example, the hijacking of civil rights, is the result of the success of modern education. Because we stress and we do not sufficiently realize that modern values are broken religions. And the being who superior religions is therefore not necessarily wrong. And because we stress the one-sided development of intelligence and fail to give support in the child development to moral value judgment, youngsters grow up, and particularly they succeed well in school, and they leave school and don't and have to make money, and have to find out how to do the best and most effective. And they find out if they find a software and money, bankruptcy will be perhaps 5 or 6%, the return will be so much. Why? Well, their vision is that they know that people who hijack civil rights only benefit some outcome. The return is far greater. And it is not an uninteresting job. They are guilty of having nobody really suffers because all these firms are insured. The loss is shared out today. Socially,
Dr. Weiss's point of view about education is one that I agree with entirely, especially then.
teaching, stay on your feet. And lift up. My son. You're ready. I love birthdays, especially my own. And I and my family mark this special occasion.
We all bring offerings to God on earth, the sun that lights our life.
I offer praise to my Father on this great day.
You have done well, my son.
Bye. No.